Good afternoon, everyone. We're back. Council is out of executive session, and we're back into our work session on our agenda. And our next item for conversation is the FY 2021 budget review. I know staff has been working hard, and of course, in these unprecedented times, planning is even takes a lot more of examination, and appreciate that. And we're going to continue our budget review at this time. So I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Mr. Stuart Bedenbaugh. Stuart.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to discuss this year's budget, third budget I've just had the privilege of working with council on. Just a couple of highlights before we kind of dive in. We are recommending a general fund budget with no millage increase. Millage will stay at 62 mills as it's been since 2012, and we have not had a millage rate increase since 1988. We are not recommending any rate increases for solid waste or stormwater. At this point in time, we believe we can accomplish in those departments what is needed based on the current rates. Now, in keeping with the council ordered rate study we had done several years ago, we are recommending a 3% water rate increase that will provide a funding base for the new water plan, as well as can allow us to continue operating quality, keeping up with the cost of operating our water utility. And we are also recommending a sewer increase. This is related to the Aiken County Public Service Authority. As you know, we belong to a regional sewer authority where we send our sewer. And the sewer, the physical plant was built in the late 1970s. And last year they completed a $40 million upgrade and renovation of the facility. And as one of the partners, they passed the cost on to us. And there's an additional $180,000 charge as part of their debt service that they are passing on to us that we have to pay. And it has been over the last this predates this council, but this council, as well as prior councils, have historically passed those rate increases from the Public Service Authority for sewer for the sewer work to the customers. So these recommended rate increases, should council pass them, the average residential customer, which we identify an average residential customer as as a household or as a property that uses 800 cubic feet of water a month, will see their bill go up about $1.48. We would like to bring rate increases. Those have to be done separately. They are not part of the budget ordinance, and we would recommend that the rate increases be brought for first reading at the May 11th meeting, with a subsequent second reading in June, with them going into effect July the 1st. So I will say for a minute, certainly until about 8 weeks ago, we believed this budget process was going to be a kind of an average budget year in terms of preparation for presentation to council in terms of revenues and expenditures. While we did not expect to have certainly a windfall increase in revenues, we felt like we were on somewhat of an upward tick in all funds. And certainly the COVID-19 pandemic, which hit us in mid-March, has caused us to rethink that to some degree. However, in the general fund, we do believe there will be some revenue declines due to COVID-19, and we've accounted for that somewhat in business license reductions. We've kept personal property tax revenue, which is almost entirely funded via motor vehicles. We believe that that's going to be kind of flat. We don't expect an increase in that because we believe entering a recession, and historically during recessions, folks are slow to replace motor vehicles. And as you know, the newer your motor vehicle, the higher the taxes are. So if you keep a car longer, your car taxes, your personal property taxes on said vehicle tends to decline. So we've accounted for that. but I believe the fundamental elements of our general fund are pretty stable. Went back and looked at the last few recessions, certainly the so-called Great Recession. I went back and looked at 2007 pre-Great Recession through 2011, fiscal year 07, 08, which was, I guess, the last year prior to the Great Recession, as we really didn't enter the Great Recession till fiscal year 08, 09. And property tax revenue rose slightly each year. So again, based on my conversations with folks that high level individuals that work in the financial institutions, as we sit here today, the banking system, I mean, this recession is not borne by a financial crisis like 2008. And even then, though, the property tax revenue on real property, your residential, your houses, your businesses, the bricks and mortar stayed constant, if not slightly increased. That does give us a little bit of optimism. And also franchise fees collected from our electric utilities. Those fees, they cut us a check, both Aiken Electric, which is a very modest amount compared to Dominion. That is based on what they bill customers, not what they collect. So again, that is people are going to continue to use electricity. And again, that is, we believe will be around $1,461,000. We're continuing to replace capital equipment where depreciation money exists. And I do want to say, those of you that looked in the budget, for example, we tried to get creative with some things. You may see where public safety asked for some particular capital items, and in the general fund, the city manager budgeted no funds. And the reason for that, there were two major projects they asked for. And by the way, in the matter of disclosure, the chief is present. He's sitting more than 6 feet from me in this room, but I don't believe he's on camera, but he's right there. And we funded the public safety capital, some of their capital requests. We bought Toughbook computers for the public safety patrol cars beginning in 2010, running through about 2012. And those are coming up for, some of those are coming up for replacement. We have money left over in capital project sales tax 3. This was the money that voters passed in 2010. We have the cash on hand, and we are going to recommend and bring to council those replacement recommendations through that fund. Same with the firing range on DuPont Avenue. As you know, as you probably know, public safety has a firing range on DuPont Avenue. They asked for money in the budget to do some renovations and repairs to that. And again, there is money for the firing range that left over from capital project sales tax 3 that we can fund. So you may see in the general fund where it may look like we're not funding public safety, which I know this council's been very clear that you want to see public safety needs and so forth funded, and we are doing so. The budget does not have a cost of living raise in the budget. I think we went back over 20 years, and this will be the first time, and our records go back to about 1998 when we kept up with this, that we're not doing any sort of cost of living. However, due to council's great foresight and budget acumen that you had last year with carry forward money, we set aside funds for our comp plan, that 2% compensation plan increase for all employees. So we can, that was about 2/3 of what we needed. So we are going to be able to fund a 2% compensation plan increase for employees that they will receive at the time that they have their performance evaluation done in the fiscal year between July 1, 2020 and June 30, 21. So again, thank you for that foresight that you had to do that.
Is that automatic, or what criteria will they have to meet to?
No, they have to. We have an evaluation instrument, that performance evaluation instrument with 10. Everybody gets evaluated on the same 10 criteria. Then, depending on the job or where they excel or need improvement, or optional areas, that you pick from to do. And if you, it's a 1 through 5. 5 is perfect. 1 is
Right.
reg. So if you score at least a 3.0, you get a comp plan increase. You get it. Overwhelming majority of employees score that. The rationale is if they're substantially below average or extremely poor, they don't really make it that far in the organization. They tend to they don't make it. So, the comp plan, I have to say, council's vision several years ago to begin the comp plan has been very helpful because it has allowed, it has helped us, I believe, with employee morale and retention of the employees. It gives them incentive to perform. So again, due to your foresight, that has been very helpful. Some of the items in the budget I want to highlight before we get into your questions are we are absorbing the 2 traffic officers. You may remember 3 fiscal years ago, we got a grant from the State Department of Public Safety to which is the umbrella agency that the Highway Patrol is in, to fund 2 traffic officers. The grant terminates September 30th. So for the remaining portions of the year, we are funding that out of our own budget appropriation. We do have the full fiscal year funding of the crime analyst position that council added when we did carry forward in August of 2019. We also are funding new equipment, including firearm lockers to outfit new patrol vehicles. And we are funding service weapons, not revolvers, but new service Glocks for all officers. I believe the chief may have he briefed us on that not too long ago. I noted some of the items not included, but we do have. I do briefly want to mention the 2 funds hardest hit. We believe will be our discretionary, so-called discretionary spending funds, and by discretionary, those are paid for by the users, not discretionary at the city's from the city's view in terms of how we spend it. The accommodation tax and the hospitality tax, we believe, will take a hit in the short term as the country adjusts to a new normal with the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. We have cut those budgets back 20% in each and are making those allowances. One of the things we aren't taking into account right now, as we sit here today, there's going to be 2 Masters golf tournaments in fiscal year 2021. But we are only assuming there's going to be 1. If there's a second Masters tournament, we will probably see a fair amount of unanticipated revenue from hospitality and accommodations tax. If we do, if things do get back to normal in those funds, we will come to council midway through the year, sometime December, January, after the holidays, and request a budget adjustment to reflect that, because there are certainly some things that council wants that we would like to fund. So those are my opening remarks for the budget. We do have the privilege of having our staff, our department heads here. I know one other thing I want to mention, economic development. We've got in the general fund, we've got $80,000 in economic development, and we've got $900,000 for a major sewer expansion project, which is going to lead to some economic development in the budget as well. The rationale there is we believe the Municipal Development Commission, that is one of their charges, is bringing forth money. I think council is very clear. The expectation of this board will be funding a lot of this. The city will serve as a backstop. And you may remember also last year, as we sat here a year ago, April of 2019, we only funded a certain amount of money for economic development. And as we closed the books, we added more money to it. Now, we had a good presentation by Kim Wheat last week, our finance director, to give us kind of an idea, a best guess estimate of what our carry forward money will be. And we believe there could be an opportunity to add to economic development. But as we sit here in April to present you a balanced budget without raising millage and meeting the obligations of the expectations of council and our citizens, funded that amount of money. So those are my comments. So thank you for giving me the floor and letting me prattle on for quite a while.
Stuart, Ms. Mayor, may I ask a question, please?
Certainly, Councilwoman.
Just for the record and the viewers, can you mention the 3% cost, average cost for water rates and the sewer rates so that the folks, whoever's listening in will know?
Absolutely. And we only look at what the cost is for residential customers,
Right.
price. So the average residential bill, we believe with these water and sewer rate recommendations will be $1.48 extra a month.
So that's 48 cents for the water, right?
Water rate
$1 for sewer.
and $1 for
Right.
sewer.
You're looking at total less than $20 a year on the bill. And again, I would like those that are viewing this, as you may remember, our utilities are enterprise funds, and they are expected to pay their own way. They do not get funding from the general fund through tax money. It is user fee generated. Again, council's been clear that we need to, when we are given costs by our partners, in this case, the county, we bring to council that and let council decide, do we pass it on to the customers or do we absorb it to the, And again, the county, we pay the county several $1 million a year to process our sewer effluent. And they are passing on another $180,000 extra dollars in cost.
And just for the record, it's been 50 years since we've totally upgraded or had a new system.
That is correct. 1979, I believe. So it's been quite a while.
And we have to have our water maintained healthy, safe for our citizens. And when we looked at this, we all agreed to try to repair it cost almost as much as a new one. And then you still weren't sure you weren't going to have things that were going to break down. So
that's correct. That is so true, Councilwoman Broll. This does give us the a baseline for water rates to help us as we begin the process of replacing our water plant, planning that foundation to finance, because it's going to be a tens of millions of dollars endeavor. And while we would love to be able to pay cash, we will be able to pay some, but we will have to finance a large portion of that amount as well.
thank you.
Stuart, is it your goal for this meeting for us? I mean, we've already had the budget numbers to review. Do you want just specific questions for this evening? I mean,
Absolutely. We do have all the department heads here.
Yes.
I know it was let me just briefly tell you kind of the format. I know last year we had 8 budget meetings between March and June, and certainly we are more than willing to meet as often as you want. But I got the impression from my conversations with you as a group and privately, I believed you wanted you maybe wanted to try a different approach. So at a minimum, here's what I would like to propose. We will have this certain budget workshop. We will have another budget work session before our May 11th council meeting. We would like to have, in order to stay on schedule with the budget, we would like to have at our May 11th council meeting, first reading of the millage rate, the budget, and the water and sewer rate increases. And then that gives us at least a month, if not longer, to have additional meetings should council feel like we need to, additional work sessions to answer questions, take in more comments, and have a second reading as early as the first June meeting June 8th, I believe, would be the date, or have it by certainly second reading June 22nd, which is our last scheduled meeting before the new fiscal year starts. So that's kind of the what I envisioned during this budget process. We've had, we've had several budget meetings with you to kind of get a flavor of what the staff is looking at, what we are doing, and that's what I'm proposing.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. Waltz?
Okay. Stuart, we said you changed 20% the hospitality and accommodations tax. What's the percentage increase on the total budget or decrease on the total budget? Does that bring the total budget down to about 7-8%?
It brings the hospitality tax budgets went from this year, it was about 1.6. We put it down at a little higher than 1.3. And the accommodations tax, let's see. I apologize for not having those numbers.
Well, that's all right. But, I mean, the point is it doesn't make that much of a big difference on our total budget, does it?
Not for the, no, it does not, Councilman Waltz. And again, one of the things our staff's I'm going to reiterate to staff, we're doing it now as we close out the books for this fiscal year and start next fiscal year. This is not, government has a reputation, sometimes deserved, sometimes unfair, of at the end of the fiscal year, if you've got $100 left in a bucket, you spend it and buy the widgets. Not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a reverb somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But and at the end of the next fiscal year, we will instruct staff, certainly if you need something, if it's a key item that you've been waiting on, but it's not a license with a new budget year to just blow your budget. We need to wait and see through this COVID pandemic, but we do believe based on information from the Municipal Association, talking to, looking at trends in the past, we were very cautious, but we were somewhat optimistic because this is not a standard recession we're entering.
Well, that's my question. I mean, when we started this, we didn't realize we were going in this pandemic. We didn't realize how hard it was going to hit us. And I don't think we're going to know for a few months how hard it's going to hit us, because it's going to take a while to get the system. A couple of weeks ago, the Washington Post said 2,100 municipalities were in trouble already, and they expected more to happen. I hope that you're 100% right, and our picture is as good looking as you say it is, but I'd rather err on the side of being cautious and conservative on this. We need to budget down 10-20% overall budget and be prepared for something worse, because we've got 26 million people in unemployment, 30 million jobs gone. Open up the economy tomorrow, we're not going to get those 26 million jobs back for a long, long time. And that means these people who are unemployed are not going to be able to pay their rents, the landlords are not going to be able to pay the mortgage, and we're going to see some ripple effect for this. Just today at 4 o'clock, the former CEO of Starbucks predicted that 20 to 30% of the small businesses will be closed by Labor Day. I don't think we have a grasp on it. From a financial point, I know that banks are preparing in a lot of ways for things, knowing that something's going to happen or expecting it to, and preparing for the worst rather than the best. So I think our overall budget should be brought down 20% to be prepared for what could happen. We can always amend it up, but I don't want to have to go to the well and take all the money we've saved just to get by and then be out of money. So that's just a couple of thoughts on it. I think that we should not be spending money on capital projects or construction or anything that we can take out easily or don't need or put off for a little while. We should be doing that now to be prepared for what's going to happen 6-12 months from now. It's just my thoughts.
Thank you.
And we have frozen.
I don't know that anybody else has anything to say.
If you add in all our funds, we do, our adjusted budget for this current fiscal year we're in is about 62.5 million, and this one's about 60,900,000. So it is down some. A lot of it is transfers, a fair amount is depreciation, transfers to replace equipment. So the cash is on hand, certain for a lot of the capital equipment. Certainly, the revenues coming in, again, property tax, even through the worst of the recessions, the obviously I didn't go back to the Great Depression in the 20s. I only went back to 1990. But the property taxes do tend to be stable. If owners can't pay the taxes, we do collect the money eventually, and it is counted as revenue in the year. So again, it is a challenge, and I think we're fortunate. You're right. I saw the same Washington Post article. I have to say, I think the city of Aiken historically has managed our finances a lot better than most. No GO debt. We've got some enterprise fund debt for our sewer and water. We have no debt tied to our hospitality tax or our accommodations tax, long-term debt, and the debt we have on the public safety building comes from what? The franchise fees paid by the electric utilities that they pay based on use, not collections. So again, I think it's a fair point what you're saying, because you're right. I don't know anybody, I've not spoken to anybody that lived through the last pandemic because they're pretty much not around. So
Right.
it is new ground. But I think using past judges from past economic recessions, I think we do have a conservative budget while kind of moving forward to get some of the things, the expectations that council has.
Stuart, when is our cutoff, to finalize the budget? I mean, this is the end, kind of.
Well, I mean, we need to have a balanced budget, or state law requires municipalities to have a balanced budget by the end of the fiscal year. So when we roll into July
June.
1st.
July.
Yes.
Okay, so I tend to, like we said, be cautious also, but certainly by the time we get to that point, the next couple of months are going to be telling us something. And
I am very curious to see hospitality tax revenues, for example. I think accommodations tax revenue, which is a lot smaller than hospitality, is going to be quite down. I've been talking to hoteliers. On a normal day in Aiken, occupancy is 40 to 50%. That's with no special events going on, and it's well below 15% at hotels.
right.
But hospitality tax, just looking at some receipts, it's still staying strong. People are still eating out. Obviously, the sit-down only restaurants are closed, or they're open for takeout. But your ones with car drive-throughs are doing very strong, and some of those receipts bear that out. I want to see when we close out the books on some months here in March and in April, what those show. And by Memorial Day, we'll have April's receipts, which will be an entire month of COVID-19 effect, in that no in-restaurant dining will have taken place that month. So that will really kind of be the so-called canary in a coal.
Right. That'll tell us a lot more, won't it?
But I will say the new Taco Bell that's opened seems to be
Busy, right?
around.
I think all the drive-through restaurants that have already had that ability have not been obviously impacted, like to go in and sit down, because the majority of their business was already drive-through. And so I just, as we go forward, we're going to have to just keeping an eye on that, and maybe doing things adjusting as we go along,
Absolutely. Well, again, staff, we can look at some scenarios for our next work session where we could show council these are some things to consider and potentially give you that approach. But I do think we do have
Those,
three starting so early that we will have an idea of these revenues before we have to put a second reading on a budget.
I think that's good.
accommodations and hospitality, I think we all agree. I mean, we know it's going to be affected hard, but
Right.
that does not affect our general fund. Those two revenue sources are held outside the general fund. So it does not affect our millage or the budget that we're looking at for this work session. Something obviously that we're all watching, but a lot of times that's used for mostly one-time expenditures and type thing. So I mean, I've looked through this budget. I mean, when you gave it to us, it is a conservative budget. I think Councilman Waltz may be right. There's places that we can look at, and we certainly don't want to be caught in a situation where revenues come in below and we don't have the money that we allocated, but we are in a fiscally strong city. I mean, especially you look around the state, I think we're in an enviable position in that we do have reserves. And we do have our budget we don't have any general obligation bonds. Any lending that we have as a city has a revenue stream. For example, the charge on the collector. What is that, Stuart? The
Franchise fee.
Franchise fee. I think it's a responsible budget, and so I mean I'm all for if we look through and we see places that we can save. I mean, initially I would say if there's anything I would look at whatever we have, because we're in a city that funds depreciation, so there's money in here that's going towards future purchases. If we needed a safety net, we could look at that through a tough year or a tough season.
Now, another very good point with Councilman Waltz and where I am concerned, we don't budget for it in that it's our capital project sales tax round 4. Now, let me speak first. Right. Round 3 and round 2, those monies are collected. The cash is on hand drawing interest. But the current 1% round 4 that we borrowed ahead and are paying ourselves back, I agree. I do think we are going to see a significant decline in our quarterly receipts, and we won't see that until the July receipts, because it's a trailing quarter. And obviously retail, with pretty much everything closed down from mid-March through April, except for groceries stores, which do not, obviously unprepared foods don't pay sales tax. Certainly you pay sales tax on restaurant bought food and what you buy at Home Depot and Lowe's, etc. But I think those quarterly receipts are going to be significantly down. And I do think for those projects we have in the pipeline that we have not started yet, we have not bid out yet, we are going to have to put those on hold until we see what those receipts are. And that is something that we're paying very close attention to. And if I was going to be concerned, that would be sort of the holy trinity of what I'm concerned about: accommodations tax, hospitality tax, and collections of capital project sales tax round 4 revenue.
Makes sense. Yep.
Stuart, you addressed grocery stores and some of the other stores that we're seeing high volume of folks buying material and so forth. How does that help us with the significant increase with shoppers in those stores?
Well, those kind of so-called big box stores, which are viewed as essential businesses, those account in an average year for about 18 to 20% of our business license revenue. So I suspect they will take on a greater percentage of the revenue we collect just by the fact they were open for a full 12 months, selling a full, pretty much a full inventory, their full inventory. So I think we'll see some spinoff from that. Will it be enough to make up for what the so-called non-essential businesses are paying, it remains to be seen. But that we did account for some modest decline of business license receipts. And remember, business licenses that are going to be paid this year are going to be based on gross revenue from last calendar year, 2019. So that's pre-pandemic. So those businesses that are able to pay, it'll be based on 2019 pandemic.
Okay.
Calendar year. Where we will see a more pronounced effect, I do believe, is going to be when we're sitting in here a year from now,
Right,
seeing the budget for fiscal year 22.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to reiterate what Mayor Osmond was referring to as far as the various funds. And I just wanted to add that as we're discussing this particular budget topic on sewer and water and all those, I just wanted to, for public record, to reiterate that those are enterprise funds and those are self-sufficient, just to add on to what Mayor Osmond was referring to. So those funds, run on their own. And like Mayor Osmond mentioned, they're not coming out of the general fund and revenues.
Let me just add to a thought that over the many, many years in the budget discussion, I found the city to always be conservative in their spending, very cautious about things of this nature that could occur. And the mayor used the term that we are physically sound, and the fact that we have a staff that is pretty conscious about being responsible in terms of their budget. And that in itself has helped us along the way over the many, many years of their budget proposal to us, what they were requesting in their budget. They have been very conservative. And I found that it's been city council members that have said, and I'm included with this, tell us what else you need, because we want to make sure that you are equipped with the things that you need to be successful with your departments. So I just want to say thank you for being so responsible in your recommendations to us as a council body.
And it's evident in their the budget supplemental information that's included in this
Yes.
packet.
Yes, very much so.
All of the departments have a list of their automations and efficiencies. This is good. This is
I want
good.
Very impressive, very
Thank-
impressive.
Very.
Thank you. I want to compliment staff and thank you, council, for giving us the opportunity to present those. That's just for information. We can certainly discuss it if you wish, but that's not my intention to have a formal presentation. But we do take pride in treating this, running it, and treating it like it is our household money. But we understand it's kind of for the greater good of the city. And I appreciate and salute the department heads here.
So do we.
Yes, yes, it's very good. And
all of the
you know-
staff, not just them, all of the staff.
well, and when we had our auditors in, they commented on what a strong position the city was in, which is a great thing. We started into this in a very strong position. So that is some solace as we go forward. And this was great in the fact that I think Councilman Woltz asked about the impact of the masters, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you had down here that it was 83,000 total.
That's direct impact we can trace. We did ask Councilwoman Brolin, and I know it was based on Councilman Woltz's question. We checked with the Chamber of Commerce and some other folks, Will Williams's group, but nobody had a number for Aiken, believe it or not, for total impact. I thought I've seen a number, but I couldn't put my hands on it. Maybe I imagined it, but we were able to do some rudimentary based on April is usually the healthiest month, understandably, for hospitality and accommodations tax, and is probably almost totally due to the masters.
Right. And that's not including the people that come here and shop and those ancillary things. So that, you know, that buy things all over town.
I would guess that number probably has a multiplier of 2.5 to 3 on
I
it.
would say so too.
I mean, you figure business license revenues are calculated on a business's gross revenue. So yes, there is other more indirect, but we believe that 83,000 was a number we could directly attribute to the masters. But it is substantially more.
All right, very good. Any other questions at this time? We will have another opportunity, and I do want to compliment Stuart and staff. I think the information provided to us was very helpful. Council
Excellent.
be prepared and answer a lot of the questions. I think that's by being able to review it. So thank you for providing the timely and very thorough information.
Very detailed. Yes, it was. Thank you very much.
So Stuart, we will path forward on budget. We will have opportunity for one more session just to cover any other questions that may come up. And I know obviously council members have the opportunity to talk to you about questions also. But so the timeline, I think you said May 11th. Was that?
It's first reading of the budget, May 11th. And the reason I would like to recommend we stick to that is we have to advertise second reading 30 days ahead of time. So first reading, of course, we can amend the budget, make as many changes or as few as you want between first and second reading, but we will have first reading of the budget and the millage rate, May the 11th. Second reading, we could have as early as the June 8th meeting. And we would also like to have first reading of the water rate increase and the sewer rate increase on May 11th with a second reading June 8th, if the council wishes to pursue those rate increases.
Very good. I would suggest we take a recess or conclude our work session and maybe come back in 5 or 10 minutes. So the way we were advertised, we can start our meeting after this one, but I think everybody would probably like at least maybe a 10-minute recess, if that would be all right with everybody. It's 6:35, so maybe 6:45 we come back to start our meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
And
Do
we
we-
don't need-
Make
Do we
coffee.
check out or do we just leave everything on?
Click the start video to hide yourself.
Start.
There you go. Gary did it.
Okay.
Very, very good. All right, I'm going to mute my microphone and we'll start back at 6:45 for our regular meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.